balance of fairness at the outset that this is one of two events. So the WPCC, who are non-political, are running this event first, and then on the 9th of June, I think at Weymouth College at the moment, they will also be running an in-event with a similar format, a panel and Q&A. So anyone who's in the audience who wants to go to that, that's a date that's coming up.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Thanks very much, everyone. I'm certainly not going to speak for 15 minutes and cover the same ground already. But the EU does seem to be very accident prone, and I think that the points that have been made about it's moving on all the time, and it's as if you have to try and stall it and stop the machine from advancing, and it's definitely becoming less democratic. But a lot of us were pretty neutral about the EU, and I remember we joined the exchange rate mechanism in 1990 or so, and it was a weird economic experiment of trying to link currencies together, and it resulted in the UK having to put interest rates up, and other countries, to try and stay hand in hand with the Deutschmark. So a lot of people in here, your mortgages on your house doubled over a couple of years. I know mine did, and the sense of humour wore off after a very short time. A lot of businesses went bust. It was a terrible time. Barclays Bank, who are supporting Remain-Can, nearly went bust because all their customers' assets, their houses and their freehold buildings, went down in value, and they had to be rescued in a rights issue. So the world was in a terrible state. And so you'd think people would have learned from that, wouldn't you? But they didn't. And they came back again with, it's like the Terminator, you know, it reforms and comes back again with the euro. So Kate and myself, Tony Bain, Frank Field from the Labour Party alone, strongly opposed the euro. And it was the same old, so it was the same arguments. And we're preaching to the converted here, of course, to a considerable extent, but it was the same old arguments. The city's going to get devastated. A lot of firms are going to relocate to Euroland, etc. And it simply never happened. The self-evident truth is you can't have a currency without a government. It's two sides of the same coin, but it didn't stop anyone. You see it now. In Britain, we raise taxes in Weymouth or London or wherever it is, and if there's a mining village in Wales, where the mine shut, we collect those taxes and pay them out. That doesn't exist within Euroland. So the Germans, for example, the German voters rightly say, we're not going to pay money to Greece. It's a different country, but yet the currency can't work without that. So it's very depressing the way the same things are happening. CBI was supporting the euro. The Financial Times was evangelically supporting it. Mr. Heseltine in the press today, he was a huge supporter of the euro, and he pops up like Dracula out of his box 15 years later. Boris, who's just hacking around the country trying to get us the democracy back. So the business argument is, if you look around the world, the most successful countries are always democracy. Democracy, for all its faults, and you sometimes wonder how the hell it can happen, produces by far the greatest level of prosperity and by far the greatest level of freedom. So every business needs freedom and democracy. North America, and Obama's been mentioned, has got democracy enshrined in its constitution, and it's been an enormously successful country. South America, same population and similar resources, similar climate, had struggled terribly, not because the South American people are bad, but they simply haven't had democracy. So the Microsofts, the Facebooks, the industrial companies over the last century, they come from America. They don't come from South America. It's not the fault of the South American people, it's the fault of the lack of democracy. So we've got too much regulation, we've got too much tax, that's the business argument, so I'm not going to labour those points. A lot of employment regulations which we don't vote for. Actually, at a company like Wetherspoon, we're happy enough to do it because we're a big company, but for small companies starting off, particularly in lower income areas, it puts a fantastic strain on them. That's why a lot of big companies, I think, like regulation. They vote for regulation because it prevents competitors from starting up. I think the difficult thing is getting the message across. I'm quite shocked sometimes when I make the democratic argument to people, and not everyone agrees with what the majority of people in here do, but we're going to have to get some of them to change their minds. And I'm quite shocked how you say it's more democracy equals prosperity equals freedom, North America versus South, and they say, yeah, we want to stay in the EU. and so how do you get through to those people? Well, it's a difficult thing to do. I've tried myself very, very hard, and I've written a long article in Wetherspoon News, which has got 400,000 copies printed. They stay on every table in every pub from Wick to Penzance until the referendum comes out. And I think even though I do say so myself, I've addressed the arguments very well. I've dealt with Obama, I've dealt with the Treasury, I've dealt with the IMF, and the OECD, because these are the things that people are saying. They're saying, how come they support it and you don't? So we have to answer that question. And I've put it together it's online. If you look up the Wetherspoon website, we downloaded 16 pages. Also, some arguments. Mine's only 2 pages. I've put some counter arguments as well. So David Cameron, Nick Clegg, and a couple of the other chaps have put their arguments as well. It's together in a package. But I think when you read them together, it's very helpful for people who believe we should remain. So I'd encourage people to read that. I've carefully doctored my own article to deal with everyone else's objections.